organizer who is working on building power with Black artists across the state of Ohio. So she's incredible. We'll put a link to her music in here. She couldn't be here today because they're actually shooting a music video in relation to some of the work that they're doing. So check her out, and her information is also in the bio. So I want to kick us off. Welcome everyone to Black Women Winning, Liberation Movements and Local Elections. This is a webinar featuring the powerful and visionary political and cultural work that's being led by three amazing Black women organizers, leaders, and strategists in Cincinnati. So the leaders you're about to hear from have come to us with very clear requests for us to act in solidarity with them by contributing our resources and time to movements for Black liberation. So throughout this webinar, we will share concrete ways that you can support, including donation links for the organizations, and also a volunteer phone bank that we're doing to mobilize voters this fall and contribute to base building for the long haul in Cincinnati. So these are Operation Change Cincy's priority asks right now. Please join us in taking action on those opportunities to get involved. So a little bit more about Operation Change Cincy. It's a campaign led by a coalition of Black women movement leaders in Cincinnati in collaboration with SURJ Ohio, who have come together around this opportunity for significant changes to the criminal justice system in Hamilton County through this November's election. So there's a historic local election that includes a local sheriff, their district attorney, and 12 judges that's happening in Cincy this November. The panelists are going to share details with us about their work and why they're focused on this election as part of their long haul visions for liberation and justice. So Operation Change Cincy is led by Chastity Bowman, Celeste Treese, Dr. Zaria Davis, and Mariah Johnson, as well as others who you'll hear mentioned throughout the night. And a link to their incredible bios is linked in the chat. So you'll get to hear a little bit more about them. But first, we're going to hear a little bit from Avery on what SURJ is and why we're in coalition with Operation Change Cincy. So Avery, want to take it away?
Awesome, thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. We're so excited for this panel tonight. So yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about SURJ and who we are and what we do. So SURJ, Showing Up for Racial Justice, role in the multiracial movement for racial and economic justice is to undermine white support for racism and white supremacy. SURJ moves white people to act as part of multiracial coalitions for justice with passion and accountability. We're answering the call from movement leaders from movement leaders of color who have been making asks for over 50 years for white folks to go and get our people and to bring them into alignment with movements for collective liberation, following the lead of Black and Brown organizers. We're working in coalition with Operation Change Cincy because we have a responsibility as white organizers to get our people and to bring them into alignment with movements led by those who are most impacted, by Black organizers and leaders. When Operation Change Cincy made the call for support, we wanted to be there. And specifically with this November election, because we know how much it matters who the sheriff, DA, and judges are when you're trying to win real changes in our criminal justice system. Of course, our end goal is to live in a world where there are no sheriffs or prosecutors, but we agree with Operation Change Cincy leaders that who we elect now makes more possible our wins. And through this work, we believe that we can build a powerful base to hold those, sorry, I'm letting people in, to hold whoever is elected accountable. So we want to help build power for people, and that's how we're able to hold whoever is elected accountable. So we modeled what Showing Up for Racial Justice Los Angeles chapter did and said, cool, we'll get the white vote in alignment with your visions for this historic election. So we've set up a phone bank to call white voters in Hamilton County and to turn them out to vote in alignment with the visions and values that Operation Change Cincinnati has put out. So I just, before I go a little further, I just want to give a trigger warning that I am going to be talking about police violence. So right now, we really believe that we have two very different candidates who are running for sheriff in Hamilton County, and who gets elected matters for what we're able to win now and in the long term. So Charmaine McGuffey, who was actually fired by the current sheriff when she demanded accountability from officers after witnessing them engaging in excessive use of force, and who relentlessly advocates for programs, services, and rehabilitation over incarceration. And then there's this other candidate, Bruce Hoffbauer, who wants to put money into building a new jail and already has a proven track record of using excessive force and has previously actually killed an unarmed Black man in his line of duty as an officer. So who wins this election matters for what we can win around transforming our criminal justice system in like huge ways. So we're very excited to stand with Operation Change Cincy and to help build a multiracial coalition of folks who are most impacted by the criminal justice system, and not only show up for this election, but for building a base of power for the long haul.
Thank you for sharing that, Avery. And thank you so much for being here, Chastity, Dr. Davis, Celeste. The work y'all are leading right now is powerful, and we're lucky and grateful that you're here today with us to share your visions and your work so that we can figure out how we all collectively plug in. So as I mentioned, unfortunately, one member of the team, Mariah Johnson, had a conflict come up and wasn't able to make it tonight. The other panelists are going to be introducing themselves, but I'm going to read Mariah's bio now as a way to bring her in and bring her work into the room. Also, that's the artist that you heard as you were coming in. Her music was just linked below. So Mariah Johnson is the co-founder of the Artist Power Hive, a collective of 35 multimedia artist activists from across the Midwest, birthed in May 2020. Mariah contributes to the Black Arts Renaissance in Ohio as a performer and cultural organizer with the Ohio Student Association and the Midwest Culture Lab. She received her Bachelor's of Science in Organizational Leadership with a focus in youth and community engagement from the College of Education and Human Services at Wright State University. She's also a singer, songwriter, poet, and producer. Mariah is an artist activist who helps co-create the world we all deserve through art, culture, healing, and education. Her current projects include a concert in collaboration with Operation Change Cincinnati and the Returning Artists Guild, as well as a statewide movement album. So that is more about Mariah. You can see more about her work in her bio. But let's start off with, let's kick it to our panelists with the first question, just to kind of give people some context. If you could share with us who you are and what projects you're leading right now, and what do you hope happens as a result of those projects? And we'll start with Chastity Bowman, who kind of pulled the Operation Change team together. So I'll pass to Chastity.
Thank you, Kevin. Nothing like being the first one to go, right? So as he said, I'm Chastity Bowman, and I am leading the Operation Change Cincy projects here down in Cincinnati. So what Operation Change Cincy is really about, it's more than an election to us. It's more than who we get into office, it's what happens after. Yes, this election is very important. We have 13 judges seats that are available. We have a prosecutor, our county commissioner, and most importantly, the sheriff. As you know, the way the levels of government work, whoever we put in these offices determines on how we filter from our county jails into our state prisons, which is another line of work that I've been working on since March with Ohio Prisoners Justice League, where I'm the founder and president of that. So yes, this is very important. The way I began was because my husband is currently incarcerated in Toledo Correctional, and we met in 2016 while he was incarcerated. He's still incarcerated, but through these experiences and the things that I've noticed that's happening inside the facilities, I just knew it wasn't right. Listening to his story is probably the story, not just his story alone, but it's the story of probably 90% of Black males in this country, and especially in Cincinnati. So I had to be proactive, and I had to move forward and act on it. And so now that I'm working in my home city of Cincinnati, there's a lot of change that has to happen, beginning with the sheriff's department, beginning with the 13 judges, beginning with this prosecutor. That's where it starts. But it's well after. We want to hold everybody accountable. It's time that we started setting a bar of accountability to say, hey, we will sit in your courtrooms and we will watch you. And Celeste Treese will be able to tell you more about the Court Watch program that she runs. We want to push resources into these smaller organizations because we are the ones on the ground that's doing the work, right? You have a lot of bigger organizations in the state, But nobody notices the little people on the ground that's actually making the wheels turn so the bus can move. So that's what Operation Change Cincy is. As Kevin said, we do have a concert, a party to the polls on Sunday. I'm inviting everybody here out. It's going to be at Comfort Station in Walnut Hills. We're going to transport people by party bus from 2 to 4 to the poll so you can vote. And then you can come back from 4 to 8 and enjoy an amazing concert from previously incarcerated people that are thriving, you know, that are moving in the right direction with their lives. And be able to come out and just listen to some good music. But yeah, so those are some of the things that we're working on. And we're also asking you to bring a $25 gift card or more, and that will go to Gift Beyond the Gates. So what we're doing through Ohio Prisoners Justice League is we are providing Christmas for children that have incarcerated parents. But it doesn't stop there. We always try to be innovative and think of how we can educate people that are impacted by the system. How can we educate them? How can we help them be progressive and move forward in this day and time? So the families will participate in a two-day training of 2 hours, and it teaches them advocacy training from the beginning process of incarceration to the end and reentry. So those are just some of the things that we're working on right now, and we hope that you guys can really tune in and listen to what we're saying, and just indulge into the work that we're doing, and just help us be the voices that our communities need.
Thank you, Chastity. And for Celeste or Dr. Zaria, same question. Who are you and what projects are you leading right now? And what do you hope happens as a result of those projects?
Good evening. I am Dr. Zaria Davis. I actually work with several organizations. So I will share a little bit about myself, how I got into this work, and then each of the projects that I'm working on. And what you'll find is that the three of us overlap on a lot of projects. So we work collectively. And so although there's like specific organizations that are listed by our names, those names of organizations are really interchangeable with a lot of the things that we do. So I work currently with an organization called Pretrial Justice Institute full-time as a senior associate with the advocacy and community engagement team. I was brought on about 1.5 years ago after doing bail reform work here in Hamilton County, just as a community member. We currently have a grant through Arts for Justice, which is sponsored by Agnes Gunn. And we are working not only to educate the community around issues with pretrial justice, we are also working with local artists throughout the state to also do some art justice work. So we will be launching something pretty soon. And I'll make sure that I share with the group when that does go out, but we will be partnering with a specific project with local artists. And Mariah and I actually have been working on that for a while. And I'm grateful for her insight and knowledge in that space. In addition to that, we also have been hosting community engagement events throughout the state, and more specifically here in Hamilton County. And it's critical. This election is so critical. I keep explaining to people that although we've been talking about the national election, it is even more critical for us in Hamilton County as it relates to who we are electing for the positions that Chastity just mentioned. In addition to that, I am one of the founding members of the local chapter of All of Us or None, which is an organization that's led by formerly incarcerated individuals, as well as people who are family members and also supporters within that space. We are organizers hosting various events. We just had our first real event here in the city. It was a voter education event. We had one planned for the spring, and COVID decided to do some special things for us to not be able to host that immediately. But we are really looking forward to engaging in different spaces, and always looking for people who have been directly impacted by the system to be a part of that movement. And honestly, on a national level, voting is a huge issue with our organization. The challenge is Ohio, we are able to vote. So that's the plus. However, oftentimes people who are formerly incarcerated are told, in this state that they can't. And we know that that is not true. So we do a lot of work around education and empowering people to have their voices heard and to make sure that they're not only registered, but that they know like the different issues, the different positions, and then going out and voting. And then I also do work with my nonprofit, which is called Filling the Gap. We work primarily with women who are coming home. And the goal of that is to eliminate a lot of the barriers that people face when they are incarcerated, as well as returning to their homes. So we provide educational supports and opportunities. We've modeled a program from an organization out of Maryland called From Prison Cell to PhD. And we're going to be launching that program pretty soon. Again, COVID had some issues with that, but with that, we also are part of a coalition called the Unlock Higher Ed Coalition. And so when we talk about all of these different these positions and these roles, as Chastity mentioned, all of these people feed into our main, our main mass incarceration system. So the judges, the legislators, all of the people that we're talking about that are being elected. And so I tell people I kind of do work on the front end and on the back end, because I don't want people returning into that system as well. So the work that I do in Filling the Gap is primarily to support people who are coming home so that they don't have to encounter the prison system again, or all of these people that we are trying to shift the narrative with here in Hamilton County. So so that's just a little bit about the work that I do, but my overall goal is to educate and empower people and to mobilize people in a way that they feel going to the polls, that they have a working knowledge of who they are voting for and the role that they play, and how it impacts our community overall. And with that, as it relates to like racial justice and the inequities that we see here in Hamilton County quite often. So I know they're going to drop information in the chat about this, and I'll also probably add just some upcoming events that I have going on if people are interested in participating. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zaria. Celeste, do you want to share?
Great. Good evening, everyone. I am Celeste. I am the co-owner of Common Strategies, which is a community engagement and political consulting firm. We are the only minority-owned political consulting and engagement firm in the tri-state, actually, owned by 3 Black women who got inspired because we were tired of people coming to our community to ask us about issues that didn't look like us and felt like our problems weren't being conveyed in a great way. So we decided that we can come together and start to engage our community around issues. One of the other things I am is the co-founder of Better Bus Coalition. It's a group of advocates that were fighting for better transit in Hamilton County. And in March, we passed issue 7 after a 2-year-long battle of advocating to our city to fund transit. 86% of bus riders are Black and 76% of them are African-American women. And so it was something near and dear to my heart. I was an avid transit rider, as well as my dad. It drives the train in Cleveland. So it was something near and dear to me. We're happy to get that passed, and it just shows the power of grassroots. What brought me in this work, particularly around criminal justice, is my knowledge of working on campaigns on doors and understanding what really mattered to voters. And, we try to pitch healthcare and all the top line issues that people think about. But the most impactful thing that I heard throughout was the impact of the criminal justice system on my community. And that knowledge led me to being a really strong advocate on educating my community about the criminal justice system. I worked with a lot of local candidates and helping my community really understand that local elections matter. And we go in front of the judges and most of us don't know who they are. And most people don't know that we vote for them. And so this year I've used my time and platform. That's why Zaria and Chastity and I have overlapped so much in educating the community on who the judges are, what they stand for, and what type of meaningful legislation or rules need to be changed moving forward to really create transparency in our courts so that we have a better knowledge as a voter on who we need to vote for. As they said, we have 13 judges, a prosecutor, as well as a sheriff. And one of the things that we are fighting for One is transparency, and that is making judges' sentencing records public. With that knowledge, with the overview, we'll be able to check bias. We'll be able to, see any trends to really make more informed decisions as a voter. As Chastity mentioned, a couple of friends and I decided the year before last that we were going to go down and watch our courts and really understand what's going on. And the things that we found out were just sad about how people are treated. The prosecutor pipeline to judges, how there are 13 common pleas judges currently, and 10 of them used to work in Joe Deidre's prosecutor's office. So you can imagine their judgment as a judge. They're judging like a prosecutor, and who's gonna, go against their friends that you worked with 10 years and now you're a judge and they're presenting cases in front of you and you're gonna favor them. And so that is what really got me inspired this year. We hope to continue our program moving forward because we have the opportunity to elect a lot of judges, and we don't want to go away after the election and we go into the same thing. We want to, possibly have a paid program so that we can really collect real data and have people watch our course to move forward.
Amazing. Thank you, Celeste, for sharing what you're working on. Thank you, Chastity, for sharing what you're working on. Thank you, Dr. Davis, for sharing. Our second question, and whoever feels most called to answer this first can do so. Second question is, how can liberation movements like what you're building and electoral campaigns fit together in a way that builds power and stays true to our values? And if you want to ponder on it for a sec, that's cool too.
I believe they kind of go, I believe they all kind of go hand in hand. For me, I just feel like, in order for you to create a movement, you got to be liberated, right? So what liberates us? Change liberates us. I think everybody, no matter what side of the fence you're on, everybody wants the same thing. We all have something in common. We all want change, right? And so through this election, I think that this is a good space to create allies across the table and see how we can work together to create this change. Not so much we're going to point fingers at this one and this one's your fault. No, it's time to merge together and sit down at the table and figure out what works for your community, because I know what works for what's needed in mine and works for mine. So let's use this time, this unprecedented, uncommon time. Let's use this time to our advantage. I mean, yes, it looks scary out there. The world looks scary because it's different. Why? Because it changed. And it's one thing that I know about change. I mean, even in the process of making wine, it starts at a grape. But whenever you put those grapes and they press them, you have to continue to press and press and press until you make wine. And the pressing process is hard and it's ugly, but it makes such a beautiful thing that tastes so good. And so we need to take this time, be liberated, and let's create change together and take this time and use it as a tool and not as a thorn in our side. I feel like that, through this campaign, we're going to see that change. I have never in my whole life, and I come from a very political family in the coal fields of West Virginia, but I have never seen people fight, candidates fight the way they have been fighting for that liberation and for that change. And I'm proud to be in Hamilton County. I've only been here for 7 years, and this is one time that I can say that I'm proud to be in Hamilton County, and I'm starting to see people rise up for that change.
So for me, I believe that overall, we, as Chastity mentioned, we have shared values, right? It's just how things are oftentimes perceived, who benefits from certain, areas and issues. And so it's really critical that that we look at these elections and we have these conversations around equity and who's involved in the conversations. In my work, I have been talking with groups all over the city, every type of group you can possibly imagine as it relates to this election, because people understand just how important this particular local election is to how we as a county move forward. So the election doesn't, everything that we've been doing leading up to this election, to me, is minor compared to what we do after the election. It's going to be about the work that we put in afterwards as a collective body of people, as a community. And so I think that it is critical for us to not only bring in the right people, right? The people who are aligned with our shared values, who are truly aligned with our shared values, who believe in equity across the board, not specific, not if you're wealthy, not if you're wealthy and white, but equity across the board for all people in our area. Then we can take that information, our base that we've now developed, and then grow. And so I keep telling people, like, I'm going to rest right after the election and then full speed ahead, because it is just the beginning of the work. There's been so much damage done here in Hamilton County. There's been so many lives impacted in such a negative way because of our criminal legal system, but understanding how it intersects with all the other systems, healthcare, social services, across the board, our families and our communities are greatly impacted. And so even when we think about things from an individualistic perspective, it's going to impact community. So when something happens to one of us, it happens to all of us, no matter what we want to think. And so I think it's critical that that this election, that we come together and make sure that we have people who are reflective of our views and our values as a community, that we are continuing that work afterwards, and that we continue to exercise that power in holding the people that we elect accountable. So not only do we help get these people in that we think are aligned, but then what is the accountability measures? Who's going to engage in these spaces when they talk about having committees and teams, and we need to be represented. These people, all of you all who are on this call right now, need to be present in these spaces. You need to be coming with us to meet with these people after they get elected, and making sure that they actually follow through with the things that they said that they were going to do. So all of these things are a part of liberating us as a people. And I tell people all the time, it's not just a Black thing. It's not just a brown thing, because white people are being oppressed in this state as well, regardless if they think so or not. And so we have to come together. We have to come together as a community, and we have to make sure that our voices are heard, and that we're honestly, holding the people accountable that we bring into these offices.
Excellent, thank you. And this last question is for Celeste specifically. Why is the local election for sheriff and DA so important to you in Hamilton County this year? And what could it mean for your work if your candidates win?
I think it's important because a lot of these candidates have never, they've ran unopposed. And I think that just the climate of our country right now, with, the movements around defunding the police, and Black people asking for reparations, and really just bringing awareness to our struggle in a meaningful way, where we're creating a lot of allies and creating accountabilities across the board, from corporate entities to governmental entities to everyone across the board. And specifically what it means to me, because I am a data person, is having the opportunity to push our criminal justice system to do real community engagement, to check their implicit bias by collecting their data. There has been pushback on that because they say, well, every case has different factors, but we still have to establish trends. And without that, we can't check implicit bias. We can't know if you're a good judge or not. So for me, for my judges to men will mean accountability in that courthouse in a way that's never been done. Our courthouse right now currently doesn't even have Wi-Fi. I mean, that says how far they are back. And we're talking about collecting this data is a $30,000 software. Why isn't our freedom worth that? Why isn't accountability worth $30,000? And that's how, down to the nail, I've done research to figure out, how can we get this done? How can we get this done? And so for me, our candidates winning means, just a transformative thing for our criminal justice system here in Hamilton County. There's a joke that there's 87 counties, then there's Hamilton County, just because we're behind so far and just the way things run here. And so for us, it would just mean, justice for a lot of people who have been incarcerated and a lot of people who will be going in front of those judges, specifically juvenile justice, which gets overlooked a lot. Hamilton County used to have the highest bond over rate of our children. I mean, at 14 years old, do you really think that you should be charged as an adult? And so those are things like saving our kids for the future that this election means to me.
Thank you. And anyone can answer this last question before we open it up for Q&A. I would love to hear about, when you say what comes after, what is the work that you hope we can undertake together after this election? What do you hope comes out of this? What are you going to build next? And where do the rest of us fit in?
I'll start. So one of the things I would like to see come out of this, and I've heard some of the candidates have conversations about it, is the ending of our cash bail system. That's one example. And it's been done in other states, so it can be done here. I think that you have candidates that talk around this issue. There's some that have addressed it head on, as far as these conversations. But I think that is a starting point. We really do need some reform as it relates to our pretrial justice system. Right now, we have people that are sitting in the jail because they can't afford to get out. It has nothing to do with safety, even though people keep hollering safety, safety, safety. I tell people, I just want to scream every time I hear that word, because if you're rich, somehow you're safe, no matter what the crime you've been charged with. And so I think that we have to really take a look at how that system, how the system is set up and what we can do to change it. So that's just one of many things that I think we can really begin to work on moving forward after the election.
I think for me, I want to see a line of defense in our communities. What do I mean by a line of defense? I want to see ground teams on the ground. I'm actually going to be working with Street Kings out of Chicago. And what they are is they're a gun and gang violence unit that's working in the streets of Chicago. So what they do is they create alliances in the streets with the different gangs, and they reduce the gun violence. I'm a nitty gritty organizer. I like to get my hands dirty. I like to get on the ground and do what, I like to make a believer out of things. And so that's what I want to see. I want to see a line of defense in our communities to where our children can have playgrounds that are not overran with drugs and prostitution and needles on the ground. I would like to see harm reduction in our neighborhoods for those who do have these issues and these problems, and get them help. I live in East Price Hill. I can drive to Green Township, which is just right up the road, and I promise you there's not a pothole in the road. But for me to get from my house to Green Township, I'll hit 50. So I want to be able to drive in my neighborhood when it snows and the roads are plowed. I want to be able to, our neighborhood to be beautified and clean just like everybody else's. I want to be able to see that in our neighborhood, and we need lines of defense. We need accountability. That's what I keep going to. Accountability from the mayor's office, accountability from the police. You have police in our neighborhoods who aren't from our neighborhoods. So how can you understand what's happening in the neighborhoods if you've never lived it? So for me, that's what I want to see moving forward. And that's why it's very important that we elect people who can understand that. These candidates that are running right now, I can say they understand that, and they understand it from the perspective that I'm speaking on. And so you kind of need that. I believe I heard Judge Dinkelacker said you can't be an advocate and a judge at the same time, but you can be a prosecutor and a judge at the same time. Make it make sense. You know, yes, you are the front line. The judges are, you should be an advocate. You should be advocating for justice on the right side of justice, fair justice. And so that's what we're here for. It's like we're all a different element: fire, water, fire, wind. You know, we're all a different element to this game, and we just need the support. We need the resources, you know, to pour back into what people considered poor, less underprivileged communities. We're only poor and underprivileged because nobody's pouring the resources into the communities. Nobody's pouring the resources into the work that's being done. So that's my position, and that's what I want to see after it's all said and done. Last thing, if I could just add one more thing, Hamilton County is the third county in the state that right now sends the highest number of positive cases of coronavirus from their jail to the prisons. Okay, like we are a pipeline to prison. That's a problem. That is a problem. If you guys come out Sunday, you'll be able to hear from families of wrongfully convicted, a child, teenager, 15 years old, given life, and they know for a fact that he didn't commit this crime. You know, a Black man was just killed in Elmwood day before yesterday. There's no body cam footage. There's no video of it. And it's their word against ours. We have to stop this cycle. We have to stop this cycle. We have to stop the division. We have to unify, and we have to get into our communities and say, you know what? What's good for Hyde Park is good for Westwood and Price Hill. And that's what I want to see after this is all said and done.
Liz, would you like to add to that? Question being, what is the work after this election, and what would you like to see come out of November?
Victory is all I will say. Up and down the ticket.
And for you, what does the work like after this election? What's the work look like?
We have a city council and mayor's race to gear up for next year. So all the equity decisions that Chastity speak about, those decisions rely on those people. I got a lot in store for a lot of people who are running. That's what I would say.
Excellent. Last question before Avery tells us about some specific ways that people can get involved. I would love to hear from each of you about what you would like, what the rest of the Ohio community can do to support the work that y'all are doing. What do you need right now? What are some asks that you'd like to put out into the air tonight?
Well, one, of course, everyone always needs money to fund the work that they do. I feel like a candidate right now asking for money because I've been to so many candidates for, but of course you need money. And I really think it's just community. I mean, we need people who are willing to advocate with us around these issues, even if your interest is different than mine. As long as our end goal is aligned, we need more community around these issues.
I would echo that. What she just said, I would totally echo that. We just need the resources. We need the resources, and we need the bodies. We need people that are not going to be afraid to get down on the ground and walk these streets. You know, I mean, honestly, let's just be real. You have to meet people where they are. You do. And I promise you that, you know, you're not going to be able to help folks in one area of town if you never get out of yours. You know, it's one thing my mom had taught me a long time ago. She was like, if you want to know about a new neighborhood you want to live in, go drive through it at night, and it'll tell you everything about that neighborhood. You know, and so, well, actually, you drive through it through the day and see what signs are in the yard, and then it'll really tell you what kind of person they are. That was a joke. That was to make everybody laugh. But no, seriously, you know, just take a drive one day and see for yourself what we're saying. You know, see for yourself, and then come back and say, hey, this is how I can help. Because, you know, we, in the last 90 days, I can say that we've been trying to do this. It requires a lot. And this is my first election that I really intently worked in, and it requires a lot. And we need a lot. So however, whatever your resources look like, let's sit down at the table and let's collectively come together and say that, hey, you can commit in 2021, to a cleanup project in Avondale, or, you can commit to an after school program for these children who may have online learning and they don't have access to computers, or they don't have access to a safe, warm place or a warm meal breakfast to be able to go to online school, because it's happening. It's happening. My children have access to all those things and they're struggling. I'm struggling. So imagine being someone who is considered underprivileged, who doesn't have the opportunity for that. It's happening. And so we just need to take care of each other. We need to get back to the village mentality and take care of one another, because I promise you this, the government's not going to do it. And they've been proving that. They're proving that they don't care about us. They don't care about the working class, poor class, black and brown. And like Zaria said, it's just not black and brown. White people are suffering too. Whether you realize it, it's going to trickle upstream, because it's one thing that I found out about this virus and in the prisons. Let me enlighten you guys on something really quick. And I don't want to get off subject, but I have to say this. I've been working and advocating for COVID inside the facility since March. And one thing that they do not include when they tell you the number status is they don't include the 50,000 prisoners that are the 50,000 prisoners that are inside of Ohio's facilities with COVID. They do not include those numbers into the state numbers, but they should, because as long as they don't, then you really don't have an idea of how bad COVID really is, because every single facility, which is 28, has at least 1 to 5 cases of COVID inside of all 28 facilities. In 2019, Ohio Department of Corrections said that 15,000 people were susceptible to had an underlying condition when it came to these types of diseases. They already established that. So what I'm saying to you is this: as long as there's COVID in the facilities, there will always be COVID in the state. It will always, because you have correctional officers going in and out. You have staff that are going in and out daily. Okay. And as Avery just mentioned, we're at 130% capacity, and they are still warehousing people into these facilities. And they're not trying to do anything to purge it. Well, I'm not going to say anything, because right now they are reviewing cases right now to try to do a small purge. But other than that, there's nothing happening. They don't get proper health care. They go into a quarantine pod, which is solitary confinement for 14 days, and they're left there. Either they'll die or they'll overcome it. And that's what it is. So these are the things. How does that affect you in your community? Well, that doesn't affect me. They're in prison, but it does. Because there's nursing homes in these communities. The hospitals are in these communities. The people that come out of those facilities, they go to your grocery store. They go inside of your gyms, your places of worship. So it goes full circle. And that's what Operation Change Cincy is about. We want to go full circle and tackle all these issues from the bottom all the way to the top. And I'm going to stop talking now, because I can keep going.
See why I love these ladies? I love their energy. The first thing I would say to people is make sure you vote. I'm going to start there. Like, I need you to vote. I need everybody on this call to vote, and also encourage anybody that's like riding the fence, that are like, oh, I don't like the presidential candidates, I don't feel like voting for people. We need them to vote. We need them to take the time and really, if they don't know about like the different positions and the roles that these people play, please, I put my email in the chat, reach out to me. We have a 1-pager at PJI that kind of explains the roles of like the local offices. So I would be happy to send that out to people. If people are like, what are some of the issues I should be thinking about when I vote for, people? We kind of outline different questions you can think about. I just think that's critical. So that's the first thing. The other piece is, as been mentioned, it's so important that we build a strong base of constituents so that as people are in these spaces and in these positions, that there's a level of accountability that looks like all of the people that are on this call. Like when I'm looking out on the screen, I see a very diverse group of people, right? And that's what needs to be seen when we're talking with these political, people in these political positions. So I would just say, get involved. There's so many different organizations that you all can plug into, have a voice in. Find something that is something that's aligned with you and what you're passionate about, because best believe there is something out there. So if it's around policing, if it's around pretrial, if it's around prison reform, any of the, there's so many different levels of involvement. And I'm going to say this specifically to all the white allies that are on this call, like, don't be afraid. Like, I have had some really serious conversations with friends, with coworkers and different people in my life that they're either, embarrassed or they feel bad. And it's like, this isn't the time for you to feel bad. I need you to act. I need you to do, and so I just want to challenge everyone in this space to align yourself with something that you feel that you can contribute to, whether that be your time, whether it be financial resources, and then also be willing to speak out. So talking to your friends, talking to your family. I know that can be kind of controversial. Like Chastity said, you drive through neighborhoods, you see the signs, so you kind of know where people's alliances lie. But I think that sometimes it's okay to challenge people and to ask them, like, why are you going in that direction? Because sometimes people just do what they've always done, right? They're not educated on a specific topic, and they see a name that's familiar and they'll be like, oh, well, this person's always been in this position. Doesn't mean that they're good in that position just because they've been there. So I just think that it's so critical for you not to be afraid, to be in a place to feel comfortable, to reach out and ask for help if you need help. Ask for ways that you can, get involved. And I just want to challenge everybody on this call. But I say that because I've been talking with a lot of groups, specifically white women. I've talked to a lot of groups in the city, and I'm grateful, right? I'm grateful that they've reached out to me, and I'm grateful that they've asked, like, what can we do? So I just want to lift that up, because I think that people, you see a lot of Black faces, you see a lot of people who are Black and brown faces who are doing this work, but it is going to take all of us to come together and to work as a collective to really make everything happen that we're talking about today. So I just want to say that, because I think it's so important for the work that we're doing, that we have support across the board. So I don't want to be in a room full of just Black people, like, I don't want to have all the answers. Like, we need everybody to come together, because it's going to be a collective to have those answers. Like, we all have different insight, different lived experiences, and understand that your lived experience is just as valuable as mine. And so that's what it's going to take for us to really make these changes that we want to see.
Thank you to all three of our panels. Could we get a collective round of applause? Either if you want to take yourself off mute for a second so that they can hear our support, or put it in the chat, whichever you prefer.
Yay!
Thank you so much.
Y'all are
Great
amazing.
job.
So honored that y'all were able to join us tonight. Avery is going to share a little bit about some concrete ways that you can help out with this project that we're working on now. Obviously, as you heard tonight, the election's not the end, it's only the beginning, and only a one peak in what we're doing. So I'll pass it to Avery.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you so much to everyone who showed up and participated tonight. We just got to hear from some incredible leaders who are building a better world right here, right now. And I feel like one of the things I heard very clearly was like the need to take action and to, not just sit on the sidelines, but to show up for the fights. And so I just want to do another push for the phone banking that SURJ Ohio is leading with folks from all over Ohio to call Hamilton County voters. We're trying to reach 100,000 calls to Hamilton County voters. And we're also specifically targeting voters who live in neighborhoods actually who are overrepresented in the criminal justice system, because we believe in contributing to building a base of people who are directly impacted. And so that this huge base can build power and can hold whoever is accountable, whoever is elected accountable, and can be part of this dreaming and scheming and building of a better world that we heard so clearly from our panelists tonight. So I'm putting into the chat again, just the sign up form for phone banking in Hamilton County to help get out the vote, to help make the significant impact that we've heard from our panelists that this election really is going to have on the criminal justice system, criminal legal system in Hamilton County. And because it has an impact on a system within our state, it actually has an impact on the whole system. And we just also really want to urge folks to please, please, please donate your resources to support Black women who are on the front lines building a better world for all of us. And so I'm going to put in the chat, or one of us from the SURJ team will put into the chat the links that you can follow to donate and to support the incredible leaders that we heard from tonight. So just we had hoped to do a Q&A, y'all. Time goes real fast. I'm so sorry. Really want to honor the time of our panelists and our participants. And so I don't think we'll have the time to do a Q&A today. But if you put any questions in the chat, we will, in the follow-up email, we'll try to answer anything that we can. And I think that might be it. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you so much for all the work that our panelists are moving. And I know that so many of our participants on that call are also part of this work. And so thank you to everyone who's here for showing up and for the work that you do every day. And I think maybe for some exit music, we're gonna try to play some more of from Mariah Johnson, who is the fourth panelist who wasn't able to be here, unfortunately, today, but her info is in the bios that you got a link to in the chat as well. And I'll put the bios up again, as well as all the links to donate to our panelists directly. And a number of our panelists, just as Dr. Davis did right now, put their email right in the chat. And so if you'd like to follow up, please do. There's so much work to get involved in, and everyone that was here today will help you plug in.
I know we can get a little lost, but we're here, you're here, and it's time. You see clearer than ever before. And your future, it's yours. My life, it's mine. Oh, it's okay. We got each other today. We gotta get away from all the mess. It's all a test. We got it. We can make it. We can make it. We see clearer than we've ever seen before. We see clearer than we've ever seen before. I know you're tired. I know it's been a year. I know we can get a little lost, but we will. 2020 about the money, money. 2020 about to get paid. 2020 about the money, money. 2020 about to get paid. We some good farmers, plowing away at the land of the corrupt, shun away the demons who's got something to say. Time for us to get paid. All my homies got talent, you can't afford to play safe. All my homies got talent, it's a marathon, not a race. Revolution, imagination is the way. Revolution, imagination is the way. Revolution, imagination is the chase. Revolution, imagination is the place. Revolution, imagination is the key. Revolution, imagination ain't our you. Light workers, we make the world go round. We build a life of our dreams. The time is high, we strike now. A new way to do life. A new way to do life. Fuck the institutions, bring forth the revolution. money. 2020 about to get paid. 2020 about the money, money. 2020 about to get paid. We some good phones, plowing away at the name of the corrupt. Shun away the demons who's got something to say. Time for us to get